This concept is a bit strange when you first start playing Magic. How do we harness our resources, our mana? Well, the main producer of mana is land, and there are 6 types of mana: white, blue, black, red, green, and colorless. And the corresponding lands are plains, islands, swamps, mountains, forests, and colorless lands, which come in many varieties, but the simplest form are wastes. Lands don't cost anything, and you can play 1 per turn. Think of all these like your currency. The more you have, the more spells you can cast, or the bigger spells you can cast. The act of tapping your lands adds the color or colors it shows. When we tap a land, we're essentially telling the game, I'm producing that color of mana and adding it to my mana pool. You can think of it like you're putting money into your wallet that you can use immediately. From there, we can use it to pay spell costs, typically found in the upper right corner of cards. So let's tap this mountain to add 1 red mana to our mana pool. We use this floating mana to essentially buy the card we want to play, which will be Goblin Arsonist. You'll also often see gray numbers in a spell's mana cost, like in Fortress Crab. That's called generic mana. It can be paid with any color. So if something costs 3 blue, you can usually use 3 mana of any color plus 1 blue. And while the gray numbers can be paid with any color, or even just colorless mana, cards like Walker of the Wastes specifically need colorless mana to cast. I cover that all in this video here if you'd like to go more in depth about colorless mana. But going back to our basics, here's where people can get confused. Let's say we use a forest to gain 1 green and cast Llanowar Elves with that green. This little guy is what's known as a mana dork. This is a creature that taps for mana. It acts exactly like a forest in that it taps for a single green mana. The confusing part is how to use the Llanowar Elves. I've seen new players do this multiple times, where they'll tap Llanowar Elves and go search their deck for another forest. It does say tap add green after all while using the forest symbol. That's definitely not how it works, but I really do understand the confusion. Newer cards have started getting rid of text to simplify cards, which might make this even more confusing. Let's take a look at the 9th edition version of the same card. It adds the important clause to your mana pool. And if we pull up an older version of a forest, you'll notice that it still had everything written out, exactly the same as the elf. Using earlier versions of cards, where possible, can sometimes help you understand a card's meaning. The only difference besides the fact that one is a land and one is a creature is that Llanowar Elves enters the battlefield with summoning sickness and cannot tap immediately like the forest can. Now, mana dorks are one thing, but what about artifacts that tap for mana? Like this Obelisk of Jund. Artifacts like these are known as mana rocks and tap to add 1 or more colors. In this case, Obelisk of Jund taps to add either black or red or green. Once you cast this, you can use its tap ability immediately. Artifacts themselves do not have summoning sickness and can therefore tap right after you cast them. This is untrue for artifact creatures because they are, after all, still creatures. So they will still have summoning sickness, unless they have haste. If an artifact can't do something the turn it comes out, it'll usually be printed on the card like this charcoal diamond, where it specifically says it enters tapped. And then from there, all these work just the same. Tap it to add the color or colors it says to your mana pool to use on your spells. Another way to add mana to your mana pool are certain instants, sorceries, or enchantments that can make mana temporarily, like Dark Ritual, Inner Fire, or Vessel of Volatility. They all follow the same rule. They add the mana to your mana pool, and then you can spend it from there. The last thing I wanted to cover in this video is how mana ceases to exist between steps and phases. Once you tap your land for mana, you cannot keep it forever. That mana is good only for a limited time. Here's a very quick rundown of the steps and phases, and I won't cover it all in this video. There's the beginning phase, first main phase, combat phase, second main phase, and end phase. Each of these phases is split up into steps except for the main phases. Basically, as you transition from one to the next, the mana in your mana pool stops existing. You can't save mana from one step or phase to the next. Once your turn moves forward, your mana pool empties. So if you want to cast something on your opponent's turn, you'll need to tap your lands or whatever else then. Your mana is a fleeting resource, and using it properly takes years of practice. I really hope this helped you if you're a new player and explains some things you might not have known. Or if you're not new, share this with someone who might be misunderstanding some of the rules. Mana is the lifeblood of Magic, and if you learn how to use it properly, you'll be a pro in no time. I've got a whole playlist right here all about the rules, and I add to it all the time. But with that, I'll catch you next week for your weekly dose of Magic.